Good morning, gorgeous people. So today we're talking about, are you sick of making it happen? It's a really interesting thing. I've been having some conversations with clients this week. And I've also been listening to some podcasts and listening to people that I really admire, really telling me that what I've got to do is I need to be, one of the words Ian Dixon's been using is omnipresent. You've got to be everywhere. And some people that I really admire. Karen Murray's one of her podcasts I was listening, so you've got to push through. And what I'm finding is my own system is going, nah, that ain't for me. I don't want to be everywhere I don't want to be everything to everyone. I don't want to be running around trying to multitask and show up everywhere because it just feels like too much. And that's me personally. And what I've been hearing with my clients as well, and what I'm noticing as a massive change, is that in the first lockdown, I was talking to a lot of people who, as a result of the lockdown, were finding themselves really sort of almost in their brain had gone into that flight, or freeze. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'm going to talk about the trium brain. But their flight, or freeze response, they've almost like felt stuck. So what they were looking for was motivated action. So that's when the 7-day Make It Happen Motivator came about, because my clients and my audience were saying to me, I need motivation. Now, having been in a stress state for 14, 15 months where we didn't understand the rules, we're running on adrenaline, we're uncertain, unsettled for all that time. When I use words like you've got to make this happen, or you've got to, 5-day challenge, or you've got to push through the discomfort, or you need to do big scary goals, or you need to do everything all of the time, all of this kind of language, from what I'm noticing is that the people that I generally work with are feeling quite stressed by all of that. It's all right, I just heard somebody come in the house and we're not supposed to have anybody here, so I'm just checking. Who's that? I'm assuming my husband came home because he'd forgotten something. I do apologise for that one. A little bit unsettling, as my husband, I thought he'd left and gone to work about 15 minutes ago. So he'd obviously forgotten something and come back. So there's a really good example. There's me in the moment, just experience a little bit of a flight or freeze. It wasn't what I was expecting. I can hear noise. Okay, someone coming in my front door, and I'm like, there's nobody should be here. So my system has gone on high alert. And generally what happens when we do that is our system then we need a moment in order to settle it. So I want to talk today about a model that really helped me make sense of it, and I've been talking about this on the Motivate Manager Mentor course this week, and it's the model of the trium brain, and it was developed by a chap called Paul McLean. So we're just going to pop that there. And whilst neuroscience has moved on somewhat since this was developed, and he was inferring that certain parts of the brain were in certain physiologically were in certain places. We know that's not the case now. However, as a metaphor for what your brain is doing, it's a really great model for helping us to have the language to recognize what's happening to our system, and for us to start to explore and get curious about what we need in order to get back to that state where we can have that success without all the stress on our system. A bit of stress is great. We have to stress our muscles when we're exercising. When we grow, we have to be uncomfortable. But if we're constantly in that adrenaline, stretching, stressing state, that's actually going to produce stress chemicals in our system. We're going to end up poorly and not well. And we end up in burnout and we end up exhausted, and that isn't good for our health at all. So one of the things to think about is that the first part I want to talk about today is, we could call it the red brain or the reptilian brain. This is the part of your brain that is all about your survival. It's about your basic needs, so things like water, food, shelter, warmth. So when we all went into lockdown in March last year, and we're told about this virus is killing people, then obviously our system all went on high alert. Also, some people got furloughed, and so they weren't able to work. Some people lost their income overnight. That will threaten the roof over your head, the food you're on the table, your warmth, everything about security. And generally what happens when we're in that fight, flight or freeze, cortisol chemicals get shot through our body, which means the oxygen and the blood comes away from the part of the brain that we need to be able to think with clarity, to problem solve, to make decisions. And it gets pushed out to our hands and feet so that we can fight, flight or freeze. And it's an ancient part of the brain, which was from when we had saber-toothed tigers. And it's a great part, if you're in an accident in a car, you want to swerve quickly to get out of the way, you want to react fast. That is the part of the brain that we need that reacts rather than responds. But if we're constantly in that state, then we're going to be constantly taking blood away from the main part of the brain where we want to think. That's when we get brain fog. It's when we feel uncomfortable. It's when we get headaches. And I'm talking from personal experience. Like today and yesterday is the first time in 3 months that I haven't had a headache. So I've had to go on my own journey of really sort of trying to work out what is it that my system needs in order for me to create that change. And I've done lots of things, from changing my diet to change when I go to sleep, to more importantly, the thing that's had the biggest difference is I've created more space in my diary where I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not trying to solve a problem. I'm not trying to make plans. I'm not reflecting even on what's worked or what's not worked. I'm simply in the garden weeding, or I'm simply in the kitchen cooking, enjoying the smell and enjoying the taste. Yesterday I did some painting, and for me, what I'm really noticing for myself and my clients is that we have all been pushing through having to suppress the fear, suppress the anxiety, suppress the stress, suppress all the emotions of the I don't know. Most of us have been going, I'm okay, I can be all right without any family, I'm fine, it's only gonna be for 6 months, it's only gonna be for a year, it's only gonna be whatever it is. We've come up with our strategies of saying we can get through this. We're now coming out the other side, and we do need to do something that allows us to express how we're thinking and feeling. And so often when we're in a survival state, we don't express anything. We might react. So we might get angry, we might get teary, we might get stressed. So it's just being aware that we've all been, at some level, have been at that reptilian brain. The next part of the brain, though, is the mammalian brain. And this is where, as part of a sort of pack mentality, we are asking, what are the rules around here? So I call this the green brain. Well, I don't actually. Caitlin Walker does. So if we call this the green brain, this is the part of your brain that's been going, what are the rules around here? And when we don't have certainty about what the rules are, then as an individual within a system, within a group, we can start to feel unsafe. Now, if we're feeling like that on a long-term basis, that can often trip us also into red brain, into that flight, or freeze. So we then freeze, we get a brain fog. So one of the things that we can do is actually start creating rules for ourselves. So if you, where the government's setting the rules, whatever the rules are that are out there, whatever everybody else is doing, if other people are going back to gatherings, if other people are having more hugs, that's great. But you have to decide, what are the rules for you? And the only way I know how to do that is to check in and listen to yourself. Listen to what your system is telling you. So I had been saying to myself, I was telling myself a story of, do you know what, at the very beginning, I was spending a lot of time with people. So in the first 6 months, I was quite grateful not to be traveling, having some time at home, getting this house sorted. Then the second 6 months, I started to tell myself that was okay, but I really was starting to feel the strain of having people at home all the time and never having time out in my own home on my own. And when they said we can go out of lockdown, my story was about, I'm not sure I'm ready to go out to see people, but I've started to go out and meet people, one person per week for a couple of hours for a walk and a coffee. And I can tell you now that I'm pretty sure that's part of the reason my headaches have started to release, because I've taken myself out of my everyday environment, the same space. I've met up with other people, and my brain is starting to feel that I'm not alone. It's not just me, Mark, and my son at home, and me, Mark, and my daughter, that like this small cluster, that I'm now part of, there is other connections, there's other support out there. And so my system seems to be settling. So one of the things to think about is, think about what kind of resource or support you need. Also, how do you need to be now as we come out of lockdown? And what are the rules you want to live by? Because if you can do that, then you can settle that part of the mammalian brain. If the mammalian brain is constantly in the unknown, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what to do, I'm unsure, and you haven't made a decision about what you would like to have happen, then if that's consistently doing that, then eventually your system feels unsafe, and we end up in that either just arguing with people, shouting at people that we really care about, the people we love, or we end up withdrawing, not being able to, don't want to talk to anybody, or going off and doing stuff, just getting away from the situation. So one of the things that lockdown did stop us doing is going off to the gym and ignoring our problems, if you like. But you can do all of those behaviors, and it will all come down to getting clarity of what you want. Now, this is where we want to really spend most of our time, is in the clarity brain. This is the neocortex part of the brain. And I call it the clarity. Caitlin would call it the blue brain. So we want to be up here most of the time. So here's a couple of things to think about, is that if you have been in mammalian brain and red brain for most of this pandemic, then you will have no capacity left on some days to think with clarity. So the challenge you've got is you've got no cognitive ability to think, to process, to make decisions. One of the biggest challenges when we're in survival brain is survival is just about making decisions to keep us safe today. So it reduces our time frames, and it stops us from being able to actually plan for the future, or even reflect back over the pandemic and think about what's worked about it, what's not worked about it. So the fundamental thing that's happening is we're producing chemicals in our system. We're taking oxygen and blood away from the part of the brain that we really want to be able to think with. So one of the things that you can do is pause. Just stop listening to people like me on videos. Stop searching for the answers outside. Stop reading more social media posts. Stop doing stuff. Stop making things happen. Stop pushing. Stop trying. Don't keep making that stuff go. Simply pause. And just give your system time to catch up. And for me, it always feels like I've been, it's sort of like Flash, if you ever watched Marvel stuff, or he's going really, really fast, and when I hit the pause button, it's like all the sort of versions of me come into me, and eventually I can just sort of settle and ground. So one of the things that, if you are feeling constantly unsettled, sometimes it's just part of the process. You're doing something that's unfamiliar to you, something that's new to you, something that's a stretch for you. And when you're doing something that's new and it's a stretch to you, then yes, you will push through the discomfort. But if you have constantly been in a state of discomfort, stress, anxiety for a period of time, then pushing through is no longer the answer. Pushing through won't get you to where you want to be or get you stressed. It won't get you success. You'll just feel more stressed. And eventually your body will make you listen. Whether it's headaches or upset stomachs or just bursting into tears or getting angry, you'll have a reaction that will force you to stop. And I'd really like to help you stop before you hit crisis point. And if you already feel like you have done, then hitting the pause button and stopping is the first step. The next thing you can do, if you sit quietly, even for 30 seconds is probably more than you've been doing, and put your phone away, put your laptops away, take yourself away from all the people that are in your house that might be tutting, moaning, asking for things from you, and just breathe deeply. When we're stressed, we tend to take short breaths, or we hold our breath. Now, we're not doing that consciously, so we can get back to some deep breathing. When we're calm, we breathe slower. So if we can't think about it, we can just do the action. So we can breathe slower, deeper. And when you breathe deeper and slower, you can start to settle your state. Then you can think about what you'd like to have happen. And the important thing is that whatever you want to have happen, from where you are now to where you want to be, there's a really good chance there's going to be some change that's involved. So think about what works for you to go through any change process. Think about what kind of resource or support might you need. And one of the ways you can do that is by taking some time now to think about what works for you to go through change, what doesn't work, and what could work better. Giving yourself that feedback today. So what's definitely working for me is creating space in my diary where I am getting away from the laptop, from Facebook, from social media, and to some extent even taking some time out away from everybody, my clients, my family, my friends, people who will give me their input, will be sharing their stuff with me, which I absolutely love hearing. I absolutely want to know about it. But when I'm in those spaces, I am more likely to listen to what they need and what they want than to listen to what I need and what I want. And I cannot show up as the best version of me with them. I'm going to show up with a headache. I'm going to show up feeling rubbish. So what I've had to do is go back and actually take some steps back and think about what is it that I want to have happen. And my focus right now is for the year has been financially fit, emotionally fit, physically fit, and mentally fit. And so I'm working right now on what I need to be emotionally and mentally fit, because I have had a headache, or had a headache. It's gone now. This is so lovely to wake up today without a headache. I felt really rough for 3 months. But I've had to take the time out and think about what do I want to have happen and what works, or where does my headaches come from, what causes the headaches. And I've noticed, it sounds like a daft thing to say, but I'd actually realised I've been clenching my jaw and I've been pressing my tongue against my teeth. That's been putting pressure on my teeth. That's been putting pressure on my jaw, which is putting pressure on my head. So one of the things I was physically doing was clenching my teeth and actually causing tension in my face and in my head. So that was a physical thing I needed to change. Emotionally, I had not really thought about, I reminded myself that whilst I was okay coping without having anybody around me, and I'd conditioned myself to go, actually, this is a really good thing that I'm on my own. It's really good that I'm not seeing people. I'd looked at everything that was working about it. I needed to update the story, to change the story, to say, actually, to remind my mammalian brain, the rules are now that it's okay for me to go and meet people, and I need to tell that story. Now, the other thing I've realised is I had a story that was sort of, before I was finding networking quite challenging because my message wasn't very clear. I was struggling back in 2019. I was struggling with social gatherings because the rules are always a little bit unclear there. Networking is fine. You got your 40 seconds. You do this, you do that. You kind of know what the rules are. Socialising I used to find a little bit challenging. But what I've realised is that I have matured through that. I've found some answers. I've found what works for me. And so if I'm going to go back out into the socialising world, I need to be telling myself a different story so that my mammalian brain, the raw part of my brain, knows that I'm okay, that I'm going to be safe. So they're some of the things I've been doing. And for my mental well-being, I've realised I need to put more space in my diary where I am not projecting in the future, thinking about the future. I'm not reflecting on the past. I'm not thinking, worrying, or decision-making, planning, or anything. I'm simply being in that moment. And the only way I can do that, to be in that moment, is actually put my social media and my technology away. And so if the reality is I do need to have omnipresence, as Ian says, and I have to be everywhere to get everybody, then I'm going to have to create some systems and processes in place so that I can automate some of those things, like record something and then put it out in lots and lots of places, rather than having to do lots of things over and over again. So that's kind of where I'm at on my journey. I'd love to hear what's happening for you. Are you at that I need to push through? Are you needing support and resources to help you make something happen? Or is the thing that you need to make happen is giving yourself permission to pause? Just stop. Take a moment out. All right, just because we can't or haven't been able to, and you may not want to go on holiday abroad, etc., your systems still need breaks, whether it's 1 minute every hour, whether it's a day a week, whether it's a week every quarter, whatever your holiday system is, whatever your processes are, your system needs that moment to pause and catch up. So please, this is my wish to you, to find out what you need, and you know where I am if you'd like to talk to me about it. And I'd love your feedback. You know, are you looking for support to make something happen, or are you really feeling like what you need support with right now is to actually pause? Because I'm seriously thinking about changing my 7-day Make It Happen motivator on the 5th of July to a 5-day gentle 15-minute pause activities every day for 5 days. So we literally just come together and share space to be quiet, to be reflective, to be in the moment, and just checking in with our whole system, rather than trying to push through the discomforts of change. Let's just stop, reassure our system that we are safe, we are okay, and we're all right in this moment right now. And then settle that state so that we are more resourced to be able to start doing the decision making about what happens next. Vicky Heads just put really interesting live. Thank you very much, Vicky. Lovely to have you here today. If there's anything I can do, please just check in with your systems, because I'm really noticing a massive difference. There was definitely people wanting motivation because they went into freeze mode when it happened in the lockdown, and now people are starting to feel almost they're sick. They feel like they've got to keep pushing, but they then realize it's felt like they've pushed all the way through, we've been pushing through. We've been like pretending we're okay when we're not okay, because we know getting in a stress over what's not working doesn't work for us either. But equally, not stopping and acknowledging how we're feeling is going to be more stressful going forward. So please have an amazing weekend, and I'll be back on Monday with Manage Your Critic Monday. See you at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining me.